Okay, welcome to our lesson 6 for Homemaker University. We have a small class tonight, but I'm so glad that you're here, Amanda. Tonight's lesson is one that for me has been absolutely integral to having a peaceful home and really feeling like I can master homemaking. I can be a real homemaker. So I hope that this will help you and the future people that see this video. So what tonight's lesson is called Organizing Your Space. And we've talked a lot about organizing schedules and days and weeks, but this is about our actual space and where we live and how we live in that space. So I have a couple of links. I put them in the chat earlier and then realized that anyone that hasn't been in the meeting can't see those things in the chat. So I'm putting them there again. And so I'll be referring to them briefly in the lesson. So if you're interested, you can go and click on those links or copy them to look at them later. I will put those links in the materials that I add to this video at a later time. So the thing about organizing a space is, of course, we talked in previous lessons about organizing our lives. And I'm just going to remind you here about the power of habit and about doing our daily routines. And if you have not yet been successful at this, or you need to adjust it, that's fine. We just keep trying. And frequently they do change because life changes and situations change. And so our routines often have to change. All right, so I just wanted to touch that briefly, but I don't know, Amanda, were you able to watch the video from last week about laundry? Okay, all right, well, we'll talk about that another time, but I encourage you to go watch that if you haven't. It just gives some ideas of different ways to manage the laundry monster, which at my house I call Mount Washmore. Well, I used to before I got it more under control. All right, so the first thing is when we are organizing our homes, what we're really organizing is things, stuff, the things that we use for our lives and our families and our homes. And I received some very good advice one time. And if you know me at all, and probably this is irrelevant, but I tend to procrastinate. So whenever I talk about this and about organizing, I frequently come to it from that lens. I'm a person that will, oh, I'll do it later, or I'm a perfectionist. And so I think, well, I can do it more perfectly later. And so I don't do things. So that is the first tip to organizing, is to do it now. We all want to procrastinate or think of the ideal situation, the ideal time. It's just not going to happen. So for me, I have found that I do my best to not procrastinate. I try and schedule something. So or even I'll just do it now. So if I see something on the floor that's driving me crazy, instead of stepping over it, this was a big step, excuse the expression for me, was to actually just pick it up. And now moms can be experts at this. We often get to a place where we do this all the time, and you feel like, and I talked about this in the cleaning video, we feel like we're constantly tidying, and we do. But often for me, it drives me crazy if all the multiple people in my house keep stepping over the same little thing on the floor. I will just pick it up. It's just silly to me. All right. I like to just put things where they belong right then. Rather than setting them down somewhere convenient, I have done this way too much in my homemaking, where I'll pick something up and I'll just set it somewhere else. The problem with this is now the person who left it in the original spot, they certainly don't know where it is. And I don't usually remember where it is. If I'm just picking it up and getting it off the floor and setting it on a counter somewhere, I don't remember where it is. I didn't think through that. It was just an automatic motion. So it's better to put things where they belong. Now, my mother-in-law did something when she had young kids that I did when I had young kids, and it can be helpful when you have a lot of little ones and it seems like you're constantly picking up. And you can actually teach little ones to do this too, is to just have a box. It can be a put it back box, relocation box, or whatever you want to call it. It could be a little basket, but it's somewhere where you can just put things that say, you know, that you're going to have a time of day where you're going to empty that basket. So don't put it there and just leave it forever and ever. But if you know you're going to, that you can get to that later, and maybe you put that into your schedule when you're doing a quick tidy before your spouse gets home from work or something like that, that would be a good time. But if you're in the midst of the day, and it's good to just have kind of a place. I know a lot of people will do this on like a bottom stair or a top stair. If they're thinking, oh, this goes downstairs. Oh, this goes upstairs. Instead of just putting it on the stairs for someone to die, for someone to trip over, instead it might be good to have a little spot near there maybe. But the key is to empty this place often. So that's one idea, but that's one way to just get it up off the floor. Another thing, and this goes back to organizing life, is that when things happen, say you get an email from a teacher and there needs to be an appointment, or and you get a message from someone, oh, and you're trying to organize a time to meet them. Instead of putting off writing it down, immediately put it into your planner, into your calendar, into your phone, wherever you keep your reminders. And the other part of this is that that needs to be one place. Don't have a sticky note here and a calendar there and on your phone here. You need to decide where your life is, your organization for your life, and be consistent and put it there every time. Okay. So one thing that I do try to remember when I'm just cleaning up or I'm trying not to procrastinate something is to really think, how long will it actually take for me to put this in my bedroom or in the laundry room or wherever it needs to go instead of just tossing it in the basket? Will it really take me that long, or can I have it done with and not have 2 steps to this process? If we can simplify the amount of steps that we take, meaning not steps that you record on your iWatch or whatever, but the steps like the actual task. So instead of making it 2 tasks by putting it somewhere and then you have to put it away later, see if it's something you can simply just do right then, just do it. Okay. Now, the next point is a big one for me, and I'm going to talk about this quite a bit. And I know I already have a little bit, but to me, it honestly is a big, big key to being successful at being a homemaker. And this is, and I know I've said it before, drum roll, living with less. It's great to really change your mindset a little and think about why you are keeping something you don't need. We should not be afraid to donate or recycle / throw away things that we don't need or that are not blessing our family. Studies have shown that clutter causes stress, and it doesn't matter who you are, but the more clutter you have around you, the more stressed you feel. It's just a chemical thing in our brains. I remember, and I am kind of a pack rat, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit, at least I have been in the past. And I would almost feel safer with things around me. And I think this is how some people that have a hoarding mindset may feel, is maybe they have some pain in their life or trauma, and they feel safer with a lot of things around them. That's something that needs to be worked through. So no, I don't think that everyone should walk through their house and just throw everything away and become a minimalist and you have 2 things and that kind of extremism. But I do think maybe we should look at the reasons we are keeping so many things and really think through, is this blessing me or is it stressing me out? I read a book once, I think it was Confessions of an Organized Housewife, and she talked in that book, she actually, and I don't recommend this, she kind of would guilt herself and she'd say, why do you have these things? This could be blessing somebody else. And I think she was a different generation. But honestly, if we think about giving, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but if we think about how that item could bless someone, instead of us cursing it and thinking, oh, I really don't need it, or why is this always in the way? Maybe someone else really needs that thing. And that has helped me let go of things before. Okay, I alluded to this in my cleaning video, but I have a friend that lives in a different state than I do. And like I said, I've mentioned this, I want to go into a little bit more detail. But this friend of mine was very much a minimalist person. She had several children, and she was in a homeschooling group I was in, and I really looked up to her. She was a very calm and peaceful person, and her children were wonderful people. She was just a pleasure to be around. She was very quiet, and she was also organized, but not in a stuffy way. And I knew that she lived this lifestyle, but I had never been in her home after she had decided to declutter. And she was not an extreme minimalist, but she was much more than I am still. But I went into her house and it was so calm and peaceful. And she had a place for everything. And I asked her about it. In fact, she let me take some pictures, and I just talked to her at length. She walked me through the entire house. Her kids had one closet that had all their toys in it. Her older children each had a memory bin, and we're going to talk about that a little bit, where they had the things that really mattered to them. But they had very little clutter in their house, and everything that she had a purpose and a reason. As I walked through her kitchen, she pointed out different things. She had her appliances put away, which is a habit I have actually taken on just because I like cleaned off countertops. It just makes me feel like things are neater and tidier. She also didn't have all kinds of gadgets. She didn't have a lot of canning supplies, and she didn't have a sewing machine. And I asked her about these things. And at the time, she told me that she knew different people that had different things that she knew she could borrow. And that was one thing that helped her get rid of a few things. Now, I'm not saying everyone needs to do this. This was something she did. I still very much have my sewing machine and different things, but it did make me think. And when I asked her how she decided to get rid of things, or how she knew what to get rid of, this was before I had heard anything about the Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up by Marie Kondo or anything like that. But what she said is that she and her children went through their home, and she told them a story. And she said, what if we had the opportunity to go on a sailboat in our family? And she had thought this through. And she said, what if we went on a sailboat around the world and we could only take a certain amount of things? What would be the most important? And that was how she got her kids to figure out their little memory bins. And she had a clear tote. It was about the size of a file box, I'd say. Hers may have been smaller, but that's about what I do now. And she just said, what would be the thing that you would treasure, you would hate to lose? And that was interesting. She said she went through and did the same thing with her books and her clothing, that she only kept the things that she really loved. There's another name for this, and I've read an article on it, and it's there in the chat. It's at a website called thesimplicityhabit.com, but you can probably Google it. It's called reverse decluttering. And this lady did the same thing. And this is actually the same principle of the Konmari Method, the life-changing magic of tidying up. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But basically, you go through and you think, what do I want to keep? If you come at it from a different angle, and this woman was moving, and she thought, what do I want to move? And what do I not want to move? And that was how she looked at her decluttering. This can be a very powerful thing. But as we move on, I'm going to move on a little bit to talk a little more about decluttering. First of all, it's good to think in layers. I take I will take 3 things into a room with me or area. This can just be a desk. Okay, this does not have to be an all-day project. But I will take a donation bag or box, some garbage bags, and possibly a relocation box. This could also be a laundry basket. Now, I know there's some schools of thought that they put things away immediately. That can be a very powerful thing. Or you could do the relocation box or basket and put the things that don't belong there, and then you walk around later and put everything away. It all depends. Either way, it's going to take time. It just depends on how you want to expend your energy. But you go through a room, and we're going to talk, or an area, and we're going to talk a little bit more about how to do that. But you just sort through these 3 things, divide everything into these 3 areas. So if it belongs in that space, put it exactly where it goes. Say it's a piece of mail and you have a little file or little dividers there, but it's just sitting on the desk. Say you're doing a desk. Well, you pick it up and you put it in the correct place. Okay, so you already have that covered. If it's junk mail, then you just put it in the garbage bag, right? Or you may want to put it in a bag where you want to shred it. Then maybe it's something that you've kicked around for a while. Maybe it's a kid toy that's broken. You've asked a certain person to put it away a million times and you're done with it. Or maybe it's something they've grown out of and they don't want to play with anymore. And you just think, you know what, we really don't need it. I'm done with this. Then you can put it in the donation bag / box. And then if it doesn't belong in that space, you can put it in the relocation box, or you can immediately put it away, whatever your choice is. So this is a very easy system. Most people I know use this system. It's super simple, and it is an easy thing to remember and to do. Everybody has the supplies for this. It just takes your brain and a couple of either bags or boxes and just a few minutes to sort through. So I was going to talk about something else, but I think I want to skip ahead really quick, is that I want to assure you that this, again, does not have to be an all-day process. This can be 5 minutes a day. This could be 15 minutes at a time. This could be a little alarm you set on your phone. Okay, kids, we are going to go through just this little box of toys. Say, if you already have your playroom or your kids' room organized, let's just go through this box. I find this is actually a fun thing to do before Christmas, because you can go to your children and say, oh, Christmas is coming. What if we went through all the old toys and figured out if there is some room we can make for the new toys you're going to get? This gets them excited and thinking about the future. And it also, I like to emphasize, if we get rid of a few things that you're not playing with anymore, we could give that to a charity and they could give it to a little child that doesn't have something like this. And that can often get kids excited. Children are very generous. And so when it's not about the negative, but it's more about the positive, they're often more willing to part with things that they don't really play with anymore. And you I like to paint a little picture of, think about the little boy that's going to get to play with this next. What if he's never seen a robot like this, or whatever it is? Now, of course, we need to be respectful of each person's things, even a child. So I made a joke earlier about getting rid of something that I was tired of. And I really try not to do that very often, but I try and respect what is theirs and talk to them and help them. It's a good teaching moment, and it's a good habit for them to get into, to learn to declutter and get rid of things, and also to be generous and give to others. So I want to make sure that that's clear. I like to clear off cluttered surfaces that I see in my field of vision. And we talked about this in the cleaning video, but just by setting a timer and just seeing, okay, I can straighten this area. Like we talked about before, clutter is stressful. So if you find that you're feeling stressed out or that you're just feeling overwhelmed, give yourself a little victory. Declutter a small area, a little room, a little space, just a small surface, a desk or something. You will be surprised at how good it makes you feel. Okay, another note on this is when you are getting rid of things, I like to put things directly into a bag or a box. And when that bag or box is full, I take it directly to my car. Now, this can be funny because sometimes it can, be in our car forever. So I don't have a great solution to this one yet. It was actually kind of nice when some charities, you had to make an appointment to deliver things, because then I knew I would be getting rid of it for sure. Otherwise, it just it is whenever I'm out and about. But that also is helpful because if I'm in that area, I know I have something in my trunk, I can go and take it and deliver it right then. Do what works best for you. But this has been the method that works best for me, although some things stay longer in my trunk than others. So you kind of have to be careful with that. Putting that in a seasonal schedule or in a monthly schedule or something might be a good idea. Okay. Now I'm going to go back a little bit because I would like to share my experience with the Konmari Method. Now, this is not me trying to sell this book or even trying to sell you on this method. This is just something that actually really worked for me. It's not something that I actually didn't finish the entire process as the book indicates. So I want to make that caveat first. But it did make a huge difference, especially in what we were going through at that time in our lives. So we were living in a house. I'm sorry, did you have a question? Okay. We were living in a larger home. We lived in Arizona, and we had a 2-story house with a full basement, which if you've ever lived in Arizona, a basement is very unusual. And we were renting this house and we really loved it. And the landlord had actually offered the house to us and said, we would love for you to buy it because we want to sell it. We could not buy a house at the time. We had some things that we were working through with credit problems or other past issues, and we just could not buy a house. We didn't have down payment saved up. We just were not ready, but we didn't want to move, but they needed to sell. So we were settled in our neighborhood. We didn't want to go anywhere. It was a hard thing. Well, we happened to find a rental around the corner, and we were very happy about it. And our children were happy about it because we didn't have to change our neighborhood or where we went to church, and things would be mostly normal. Problem was, this new house was very similar to the first house, except it did not have a basement. So in essence, it was half the size of the house we were living in. Now, at the time, this was in 2014, and I had 13 children. I had a new baby. My 13th was born, and everyone still lived at home. No one was out of the house yet. So you can imagine how many things 15 if you count my husband and I, how many things that is. And I knew we had to do something desperate. And that's when I came across The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up by Marie Kondo. So I called it the Great Purge. I still, to this day, in our family, we call it the Great Purge. Basically, I'm a very sentimental person. And I had recently also lost my grandmother. And when my mother came to see us after that, and she and my dad brought a moving truck because she had a bunch of things that she wanted to give me and that my grandmother had left behind that she wanted to give me. This was hard because here I was trying to get rid of things and I had all these things of my grandmother's. I associate, and did especially at the time, associate stuff with people, with the memories of that person. And so as my mother and I went through these things from my grandmother, and there were some real blessings, like a new mattress and things like that, that we did need. And it was a real blessing. But as I went through these things, I really, I looked at them and I touched them and I thought about my grandma and they brought back memories. But also I came to the realization that my grandmother was gone, and she was an enormous influence in my life. Like, she lived down the street from me about half a mile, and we would ride our bikes over there. Our family was extremely close. We had family nights once a month with the extended family. We, did all the holidays. She was, I think about her still almost every day. She was an enormous influence on my life. But in that, I also realized that she had left these things. And even though I knew they had been important to her and I had all these memories of her, I realized that she did not need them and that she had left them for us, but that she did not leave us with an obligation to keep these things. And so there are things that I kept and that I treasure, but there were a lot of things that I realized that I could give to other people to bless them. Some of those things I took a picture of and I wrote down a memory. And I don't forget those things, but really what is important is my relationship with her. And I realized that if she could leave these things because the memories of them went with her, then I could get rid of things and let the memories stay with me and let the objects go and bless someone else. It was so freeing for me and a life-changing paradigm shift that I can have the memories and that I don't need the things to keep the memories. So because of that, I was able to move forward in that tidying, in that releasing process. In fact, because we are a homeschool family, I had accumulated many books and boxes of curriculum that we were either done with or we had never used, or I had thought, oh, I'll use this in the future. Because we also had a homeschooling group at our home that met once a week. One day when I knew the group was coming over, after I had gone through all the books, I put them out and several other things that I thought that homeschoolers might like or my mom friends might like. We had a large front porch at that house. I put them all out on the front porch on tables and in boxes. And I just said, have at them. Whatever you don't take is going to go and be donated to charity. And so it was a blessing to me because I let go of the guilt at not having used these things. And it blessed the people that needed those. Oh my goodness, I've been looking for that book. Or, oh, I would love to have those canning rings. I've run out of mine, and I had way more than I needed. It was a purging exercise for us. We blessed a lot of people. And after everyone else, all our friends had gone through things, I invited people from my church congregation, and then I let them go and we gave them to charity. It really was magic for us, and it allowed us to be able to move into that smaller home and be where we really wanted to be, which was in that neighborhood and near friends. That was the thing that mattered, not having room for all this stuff. So just to give you a brief rundown of the Konmari process, she calls it the Konmari Method, is first, and we've talked about this before, I think we talked about it in the cleaning video, but write down your ideal home or picture it. I like to use Pinterest. And I mentioned this before, you think of your five senses. What do you want it to look like? What sounds do you want there? What smells? Then what she talks about is that we need to evaluate what sparks joy for us. Now, a lot of people joke about this because they say, you know what, toilet paper doesn't bring me joy. You know what, the spatula in the kitchen doesn't bring me joy. Underwear doesn't bring me joy. But to me, I think, how would it be if I had to do without those things? And having them brings me joy. That doesn't mean that my heart soars at the thought of this wooden spoon that I own. But maybe it's a great solid wooden spoon. I use it all the time. That creates joy in my heart and gratitude. So I like to think of it as gratitude also. Another thing that the Konmari Method espouses, and this actually was helpful for me. Now, she is a Shinto. I know I'm saying that wrong, but she follows the Shinto religion. And so they tend to personify nature or different items. And when she gets rid of something, she holds the item in her hand and she thanks it. And then she puts it in either the donate or wherever. And this actually was helpful to me, mostly because I use it and I thank God for this thing. Or I just think about how grateful I was to use this thing and thank it for its contribution to my life and the things that it did for me, and almost kind of a wishing it well as it goes off to bless someone else. So some people think this is weird. You don't have to do it. For me, it was helpful, and it filled me with joy to be grateful, to just be grateful for that thing. And then it was easier to let it go and let it move on to bless someone else. Okay, another thing she says, and we talked about this early in our lesson, is don't necessarily approach it from deciding what to get rid of. Decide the things that you want to keep. These are things that are meaningful to you. So you'll see on this bookcase, this is just an example. Usually my bookcases in the past have been packed. This one, I probably could go through it another time or two, and I do now and then. But you'll notice these little white things on the top. These are things that I have in my office because they bring me joy. And I have to be careful because, like I said, I attach emotions to things, but these things bring me joy. The statue there reminds me of how much I love being a mother. It's a figurine of a mother holding a baby. And then the white glass pieces, that's milk glass that my mother found when I think she was just thrifting one time, and she knew I thought milk glass was pretty, and she gave it to me. They're just pretty things that I like. I have a candle in one, you can't see that's in there. And then I put flowers in this one. When I look at it, it brings me joy. And I try not to keep it cluttered. And I like to think, do I really want to dust that before I put it somewhere? Do I really want to keep track of this thing? Do I really want to, I know one of my favorite YouTubers says, do I want to keep that inventory? Do I want to inventory that and have to keep track of it? So that's a good way to know also. So just deciding what it is that you really want to keep. Okay, then deciding where everything will live. Where is its home? And this is one reason why personifying things a little bit is helpful. Sometimes I think, if I were homeless, how would I feel? If I didn't have a place that I belonged. And so no, our things don't have feelings, but sometimes that kind of little quirky thing made me think, I want to return home at the end of the day. I want to get in my nice, comfortable bed and where in my room that I feel peaceful in and go to sleep. And so that kind of is a fun idea for me, where I think, okay, will this item live? It needs to have a home. It shouldn't be aimlessly here and there all over the house. Then the next thing she does is she has these steps of items to go through. She does not go through room by room. She has a special order. First, she says you should go through clothing because it's something that we are not very attached to. Then secondly, on the list is books. Then third on the list is papers. And one thing I will say about this that I think is interesting, and I think it's actually helpful in this digital age, for her, she says not to keep papers. Now, when you have kids going to school and stuff, that's a whole different ball of wax. But to reduce the amount of papers, do we really need to keep all those ads or different things, magazines? It's good to think of that. How many of these papers do we need? Or would this do better to recycle this? And then it can be reused as something else by someone else. Then the fourth thing she has you go through is basically your miscellaneous. It's basically everything else. And her reasoning in all of these orders is to get everything of that one kind in one place, so you see the magnitude of what you have. And also so you can really evaluate, which of these do I want to keep? So when I did this in our home, we did the Great Purge, I pulled all of my books off of all of my bookshelves. Now, I'm a book person and we are homeschoolers, so you can imagine the amount of books that we had. We still have more than we probably should. And that's something I go through every now and then, because of course, not all books are created equal. And some books I'll find we didn't really enjoy that much, and maybe someone else would enjoy them more. But when I had them all in one place, I could see how many we had. And that helped me better judge what was really worth keeping. So the last thing she has people go through is their sentimental items. And that is because those are the hardest to go through. One thing, as I discussed earlier and mentioned my friend did, and I know there's other organizing YouTubers I follow that do this, is they have one memory box for each person. Now, the size of this box is up to you. And what goes in it is, of course, up to you and the person who you're creating it for. So if you want to have a memory box for each of your children, you may want to have a little baby hat, or you may want to have their first haircut, or a drawing, or something that's important, really important. These are things, and as I get older, I find that what is really worth keeping and what really speaks to my heart. Maybe I don't need every bit of clothing that my last baby wore, but there might be one little outfit or hat or something that really helps me remember how tiny they were, or just something about them that matters to me. Another thing to consider is, what do you want to go in that person's memory box, and what do you want to go in yours? So a little baby outfit that my baby wore might mean more to me than it would to that child. Now, if it's something that they go, oh, I want that for my baby someday, that's a different story. But this is just some ideas about that. And there's lots of videos you can find on this. Okay, another perspective of getting rid of things is called the gentle art of Swedish death cleaning. And I won't go through this in great depth. The lady that wrote this book is kind of a character, so there's some interesting things in there. But one thing that I really liked about this, and I'm going to allude back to my grandmother a bit, but she goes through all her things and decides, this lady, Margareta, is that she went through all her things, and she's an older lady, and she decided who she wanted to have different things, and then she gave it to them before she passed away. Now, this is an interesting thought and an interesting perspective. And that was how she decluttered, is she thinks of decluttering as giving a gift, meaning I received some things from my grandmother that when my mom went through some of my grandmother's jewelry, and of course it was all costume jewelry. We aren't that kind of family that has, wealthy stuff, but it was just, my mom picked one thing for each of her three daughters that she thought we would like. And then my mother shared the story of that thing, because some of it I recognized. I went, oh, I remember grandma wearing that. But then there were other things that I thought, oh, I don't know the story of that. Tell me the story of that. And so my grandmother actually was very organized before she passed away. She lived for 11 years after my grandfather died. So she thought these things through, and she was a very organized person as it was. But she went through and she would ask her children, what is important to you, or what would you like, or what do you need? And then she had it all organized. So when she passed away, all my aunts and uncles had to do was pull it out, and they laid it out on tables. And she actually had a system. My grandmother created this system for people to write down and sign up, for things they wanted. Well, so-and-so wanted this, and so-and-so wanted this. And so then when the family got together, they would kind of decide, okay, who really wants this more, and why do you want it? And, and then they solved that amongst themselves. It was wonderful because there were very few hard feelings. Of course, there always are, some, but I think, what if we did that before we passed away? What if there were some things we really wanted somebody to have, and we were older, and we could let that thing go to give it to them, and then see the joy that the person receiving it gets from getting that thing from you, and for you to explain why you want them to have it. That's kind of a cool concept. So that's why I liked that book. That changed some of my thought process. Okay, We already talked about doing things little by little. Now, as opposed to the Konmari method, which is she does it by groups of things, one thing I think that has worked well for me, especially if I'm not doing a great big purge, say I just need to tidy up a room, I will just go and do a room, say my office. Now, from where you can see, my office looks fairly neat and tidy, but let me tell you, from here down, it's not right now. I really need to do a tidy in this room. But it helps me to just do one room at a time, because then I'm not pulling out too many things. Now, this is probably more of a maintenance thing. I do actually like the big, she calls it a festival of cleaning, Konmari method, where you just do the great big thing. And again, I haven't finished that in my home. I still have a ways to go on that. But just to have little victories, I think is nice. And if you just need a little victory in your life, just to do a room, take a Saturday and just say, I'm just going to do just this room or just this space. And that gives you one place. I know Fly Lady mentioned this when I first read her stuff, is she talked about creating a sanctuary in your home. When you live, especially if you live with a lot of other people and a lot of small people that don't really take responsibility for their stuff, your whole house can feel like chaos. But if you can create one little island of peace in your home, it can be very powerful. And it's a place you can go when you're feeling stressed or you're feeling something that is just, that place is going to be a sanctuary. And Fly Lady recommends doing that in your bedroom. And my husband and I have found this to be true. Now, stuff sneaks into our bedroom sometimes, especially when I had 2 weddings within the last year of children getting married. And so wedding things, I kind of gathered it and it ended up in our bedroom. I will admit that, but it's not there now. And I love going into my room at the end of the day. My husband and I can go in there, we can shut the door, and it is tidy. We know where everything is. There's not a clutter everywhere. Everything has a place. And it's just our one place that we try and consistently keep peaceful and tidy. Our kids, don't really have a lot in there. Now, if you're a nursing mom, that you have your child is present wherever you are. So that doesn't always work. But just to even start with one small thing that gives you peace, whether it's a shelf, whether it's a desk, or whatever it is, give yourself that victory. And then maybe go to a room and say, okay, we're going to work on this room. Something that I know I do with my children is I'll say, okay, we're going to go to the playroom, and I do it with them. And then I try and talk them through things, because at least my children have a really hard time letting go of some things. Some children more than others, but pretty soon, because Christmas is coming up, as soon as my school has its break, that's what we're going to do next before Christmas happens, so that we're going to talk about, okay, let's see if we can clear space for the fun new things that are going to come into our lives after Christmas. And let's see if there's things we can give to someone else that might bless their lives. So one thing that helps with decluttering and to make it successful is to be consistent. This doesn't have to be every day. You could schedule a time every day in your schedule where you're like, I'm just going to do a 5-minute decluttering or a 15-minute decluttering. Or you could say once a week on Saturday, everybody bring your things that you want to get rid of. Say it's clothes. Okay, you just, especially if there's a seasonal change, I like to do that when I bring out the new seasonal clothes. Say, okay, now summer's over, we're going to bring out the sweaters. Oh, that doesn't fit you. Let's see, we're going to pass that down to so-and-so. Oh, so-and-so doesn't want it. Good, let's put it in the donation box. And then we could do it that way. So having a time, whether it's once a month, whether it's once a week, or even if all it is seasonal, if you schedule it in and put it in on your calendar so that you know that it's going to happen. I do like doing it at least weekly. I used to do a little bit daily, just a little 5-minute thing, but I don't really have time in my life for that right now. But on Saturdays, I try and get rid of a few things. Even if all you're doing for decluttering that week is moving. Say you had a box of donation stuff, you haven't moved out to your car yet, just do that. That's a victory. Now you have a space there where some clutter was that is gone. Maybe you just once a month, on the first Saturday of every month, I'm going to take things to the thrift store, to the donation store, whatever it is. That's another idea. So just think of a way to do it. Here's the key is just do it. Just do it. Just decide you're going to do it and do it. We can make all kinds of excuses. We all are busy. We all have things. But if we truly want peace in our lives and for clutter to stop stressing us out, we need to just do it. Okay, now I'm going to talk about where we put things. Again, like I said before, a place for everything and everything in its place. Our grandmothers and foremothers and forefathers knew and understood this. We cannot find the things we own if they don't have a home. I used to be a person that lost my keys regularly. A lot of people are that way. But once I established a place where they go, now my keys hang on my wall just inside my door from my garage, and I come in there every night and I hang up my keys. When I go in the morning, I grab my keys and I take them with me. Now, I go to classes all day long, so I have a lanyard that I keep my keys on. If my keys are not around my neck, then they go in my backpack. So if you just have a home, just decide. If everything has a home, then it's never homeless and you never are missing it. This is where being consistent about putting things back where they go all the time gives you peace. It helps you in your life. Another thing about organizing items, put items where you use them. So in the kitchen, for example, you might have a baking area. If you bake, then you want your ingredients close by, you want your mixer close by, maybe the utensils. So think of things as stations. And we talked about this in the cleaning video, but in kindergarten classrooms, kindergarten teachers do this. They have different stations. This is the reading station. This is the playing station. This is the whatever painting station or whatever it is. Think through your rooms like this. I read this in an organizing book and it makes a lot of sense to me. Think logically. Where do you use it? And then put those things back there consistently. You put like things near like things, things that work. When you have a kitchen sink, you don't want to put the soap in the pantry across the room. You want the soap under the sink or nearby where you use it, right? So just think that way. Okay, I want to tell a brief story. I went and stayed with a lady once. I was doing a speaking engagement. I was a keynote speaker for a homeschool event. And I was in a different state, in a different town, and I was able to stay with a lady that lived in that community and that was helping with the conference. What I didn't know until I got there was that she was a professional organizer. And staying in her home was an absolute delight. She had me staying in, I think it was her son's room, but I was amazed because everything in her home had a place, and even her house wasn't very minimalist, but everything was where it should be. And she used containers with labels on them, and she labeled just about everything, just about everything. She did it in a really nice way, and I really loved the feeling it gave me. It was very organized and it felt peaceful. So even though I knew the containers that were next to me or under the bathroom sink, they were full of things, but they were labeled, and looking at them, I felt peaceful because I just saw a container with a label on it. And I have used this in my own organizing. And I think I'm just going to show maybe one of mine. So behind my desk here, you can't see it, but all around I have kind of a hutch, and it has different little boxes or spaces. And so I use these. I got these, I think, from Walmart. And so in every hutch, I have things organized and labeled. This has glue and tape in it, so you can see in here. I even organize how it is on the inside just because I like to reach in something. I know where it is. I grab it and that's where it goes. So that's just an example, but that was a big perception change for me. Now, my dad, he laughs at me. Do you label everything? And my answer to him is yes. So in my pantry, I have things in bins. Now, this does not have to be expensive. I use dollar store bins all the time. These that I got at Walmart were, I think, 2 for $3. So here's my markers. But to me, it just gives me a peaceful feeling. I also love that everyone in my family, at least those that can read, and I have known people that do pictures as labels, but they know where it goes. There's not an argument. There's not a, where's this? It goes in the same place every time. And look, there's even a sign that tells you where it goes. Now, I actually don't label everything. Like I don't label all my kitchen cabinets, but I am a stickler about showing where things go and making sure that everyone in the family knows where that is. Okay. One method of organizing that I have found is very interesting to me because she talks about different methods for different personalities and how they organize things. It's called the Clutter Bug method. And she has organized people and different types of organizing styles. And so if you want to learn more about her, I suggest you go to YouTube and look up Clutter Bug method or just the Clutter Bug. And I found that one of her methods that works well with me, she divides them into different bugs and their how they like to organize things. I found that I'm in the cricket category. I like things as organized as possible on as micro level as possible, and I don't want to see them. So some people prefer organizing with, say, clear containers where they can see everything that's in them. But she talks about that. So that's a fun video to look up and to learn more about the way she does things. I'm not going to steal her thunder or her ideas, but it's just an interesting way, and you can see if it works for you. One thing I do want to say is to don't wait for the ideal to happen. You don't have to do things perfectly. It's okay to try things and see what works and what doesn't. Whatever you do, say, just exist in your present. Accept your house the way it is, meaning don't feel like you have to remodel your house to be organized or redecorate or anything. Just start where you are and see what you can do with what you have. You may already have a lot of containers. I know I'm guilty of this. I like containers. So when I find some cute ones at the dollar store or something, I frequently am buying the plain white ones because I feel like they work anywhere. And so that's what I use them for. And I just slap a label on them and I'm good to go. But you may have things, maybe you have some cute baskets that you've always wanted to use, but they're just kind of sitting around and in the way. What if you put things in them and you put them on a shelf, and then now you have a container where you know where things go? Just think about the house you live in and think about the life you are living now. And don't worry about trying to be someone you're not or trying to be in a space that you don't have. Live with what you have now. I do want to say briefly an idea about being prepared. And one thing that I've noticed, and in today's our crazy times, there's a lot of natural disasters or things that happen to people. If we live in a lot of clutter and in a lot of things, maybe we don't know where things are, and we could lose some things that are extremely valuable to us. Whereas if we have an inventory and we know what we have, and there are apps for this you can do on your phone, and it's for insurance purposes. And maybe if you have homeowners insurance or renters insurance, if you inventory the things that you have and you take pictures of them and you record them, then if anything ever happened to your home, then you would have something to claim with insurance and you would have proof of those things. So that's just a side note. And that's something that I have not mastered yet, but I hope to do slowly over time and in the future. But think through worst case scenarios and think through the things that really matter to you and make sure you know where those things are and maybe inventory them. Take a picture, use an app. You could even just use Google Drive and a spreadsheet and write down and record what those things are. Taking a picture is another step to proving what those things are. That will help you. If ever anything happens, you will have that security and peace of mind, knowing that you know what you have and what it is worth in case anything happens. Okay, the last thing I want to say is that living in order brings us peace. I know I have found that to be true. Now, we're all in the process of life. We live messy lives with lots of different people in our lives, most likely. Maybe we're the messy person, we don't know. But we all feel more at peace when we live in a place of order. If you've ever, excuse me, been to a place of worship that you feel peaceful in, look around and think, do they have piles of paper around? Are there misplaced items? Are there people running around trying to find things? Where's this? If we, excuse me, if we know where things are in our home and they have a place, and the people in our house that use those things know where that place is, everyone feels more peaceful. Things don't have to be perfectly clean, and they won't be. But if things have a place where they belong, and the people that use those things know where it is, that creates peace in our hearts, in our homes, and in our lives. So I hope that this inspires you. Just start small. You don't have to start big. You don't have to do a whole KonMari purge on your house, although if you want to, you sure can. But look up some of these things on YouTube. And again, in the chat here, I'm just going to again reiterate so that it's there in the recording because the chat won't show, is look up on YouTube, you can look up the Clutter Bug. She has some great videos. And also I have an organizing playlist that you can look up. It's under my name, Rachel Williams Kepner. I think it's attached to my channel somehow. It's not videos I've made. It's just playlists of videos I like to watch that inspire me to be organized. And then the reverse decluttering article is at thesimplicityhabit.com, and just look up reverse decluttering. So I hope these things help you. Do you have any questions for me, Amanda?
No, hold on.
I kind of rushed through that and didn't give you a chance to ask anything.
No, I think I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now.
Okay, good. No, I think I'm good. That'll be very helpful.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you for coming to the class tonight.
Yes, thank you so much. This is great.
I hope this helps or at least just inspires.
Yes, it can only help.
That's how I feel too. I need these reminders too. That's why I'm actually teaching these classes, because we all need the reminders. Life happens.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for attending. You have a good night, Amanda.
Thanks, you too.
Bye-bye.